question 21 in the name of Deputy Holly Cairn.
Thanks, Aske and Carla. Minister, one of the main barriers for students in rural Ireland is obviously broadband, with most courses involving blended learning now and some courses and institutions going exclusively online. Now more than ever, it's essential that as many students as possible can have access to broadband. I'm wondering, will you provide targeted funding for colleges and universities to establish hubs or microsatellite campuses to enable rural students to complete courses online? And perhaps will you look at funding for students to access existing digital hubs that are already there?
I was really delighted to see this question, Deputy Kearns, because I had a really exciting meeting the other day with HENet, who are the organisation that looks at rolling out, exactly as you say, technological solutions to students. And as you know, EduRoam is the Wi-Fi that students, not just in Ireland, but right around the world, can access on campus. And what HENet have now come up with is our proposals, or sorry, they're in the process of developing proposals to look at how they can make that EduRoam Wi-Fi available off campus as well as on campus. And then I obviously saw your question, which talked about how do we roll it out to hubs. So I'd very much welcome working with you on this, and be very happy for you to arrange for you to meet with HENet to see how we can feed in your suggestions in this regard. Obviously, higher education institutions have been undertaking detailed planning and contingencies for the reopening. They've been communicating these to students and trying to move from the emergency scenario of having to quickly overnight switch to online learning to a more structured model of blended learning, combining both online and on-site provision. The details of these arrangements are being finalised, with all HEAs having published their academic calendars with information on the dates for orientation and the beginning of teaching for the autumn semester. In July, I did obviously announce, as I already said, the funding for students that does include a €15 million fund for technology supports. In relation to the Deputy's proposal to utilise hubs or microsatellite campuses for online learning, I would highlight that some HEIs do already operate more than one campus, and they are considering all relevant approaches to a return to college where appropriate. Even before the COVID pandemic struck, a number of higher education projects were already receiving funding from the HEA under the Innovation and Transformation Fund to assist students to access courses virtually. For example, Letterkenny IT runs the iNote project, building digital capacity for flexible learning delivery in the West and the Northwest. Dundalk IT now provides a virtual hub to support all learners under its Gateway to Success project, and IT Sligo provides online and blended degree programmes for students unable to be on campus due to their location or indeed due to a disability. In relation to connectivity, which can be an issue for some students, obviously the rollout of the National Broadband Plan is a key piece, but I do think there's something we can do with HENet, trying to take your idea of creating hubs in communities and extending the EduRoam Wi-Fi to those areas. So I'd be happy to work with you on this.
Deputy, 1 minute.
I'd like to see your enthusiasm, and I hope that you can be as enthusiastic with funding for it. A network of hubs and satellite campuses wouldn't only be important during a pandemic, but would enable greater participation, I suppose, more broadly. Considerable accommodation and living costs are a barrier for some students. Mature students, part-time students and parents would benefit from these local facilities as well, I think. Through their links with universities and colleges, the existing hubs and campuses could also facilitate more research of rural issues and serve as incubators for innovation. The third level institutions I've met with are really enthusiastic about it and would be willing to work with you on it too. This year, students will need targeted supports, such as funding to avail of existing hubs, which have to run on a commercial basis. So I welcome the idea of working with HENet, but when there's facilities like the Ludgate Hub in Skibbereen, the newly opened Bantry Bay Works and so many more, I think it would be good to work with them and support local business too. To provide student rates, they already do that, but your intervention could help subsidise it further. And roll it out across rural Ireland, which would make a significant difference to so many families. So I'm wondering, would you look at providing funding for the existing local businesses to try and support them, as well as perhaps, I don't know what the story is at HENet, but I'm open to looking at it too. Thank you.
I'd suggest that I should engage with the Deputy on this, and if she wants to send me some proposals in this regard. So we do fund the HEA through this Innovation and Transformation Fund, and I have a long list of projects I could read out that they are already funding. But I think you've identified, particularly perhaps when you get to the more rural parts of our country, a real need and a real issue. I know HEAnet, who are funded through the HEA. I know they're looking for pilot projects where they can roll out connectivity from going from not just on-site campus but also off-site. So I think they'd be very excited to hear your proposals. I too would. So if you'd like to send me on some details, I'd be happy to engage with you on it.
That would be great. Certainly Well, I know that the hubs in my local area are very enthusiastic about remote campuses. I suppose in addition to that, students are concerned about commission to accommodation and other costs associated with moving when it's uncertain how much classroom learning they'll be doing and how much of it will be online. While your provision of additional places is so welcome, it does push further pressure on institutions to social distance, which will inevitably push more courses online. We saw Waterford Institute of Technology has already announced that all lectures and tutorials will be delivered remotely, with only labs and workshops happening on campus. And I think all students need that certainty that WIT have provided. I'm wondering, can you provide greater clarity to students and institutions on what will be the format for the new college year? Overstretched household budgets and students can't afford accommodation that they might not use. The campus student experience, I know, is so important. So if the majority of courses do go online, there'll be limited access to campus facilities anyway. And in the absence of this, a smaller remote campus could go some way towards creating that kind of experience, the campus experience.
Yeah, I think the Deputy has honestly highlighted the very delicate balance, because deputies in this House are quite rightly calling on me to make sure we provide extra college places. I think that's a perfectly appropriate thing to look to do, but at the same time we're obviously having to meet the existing needs of our existing students, and all in a COVID world where health and safety has to come first. As I've said before, I expect all students to receive details of their on-site versus off-site learning mix within the first 2 weeks of September. Conscious, obviously, that we're through one of them now. That's the commitment that the universities gave to me. And in relation to the issue of accommodation, I very much welcome the fact that a number of institutions are now providing more flexible arrangements. So I'm aware of a number where they're now saying, look, if you're on site 2 days a week, you can book your room for 2 days rather than having to take out a lease for 5 days a week, or indeed for 7 days a week for the full college year. I'd be encouraging more of our colleges and universities to do that.